focus. Amidst President Trump's trade war, India and China are speeding up efforts to rebuild bilateral ties. China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi is set to visit India next week and hold talks with National Security Advisor Ajit Doval. This will be a meeting of huge geopolitical significance. India and Chinese ties had broken down after the border clashes in Galwan in June 2020. But there is an expectation that from September this year, there will be some stability and predictability in ties. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is set to visit China for the SCO summit in Tianjin from 31st August to 1st of September. This will be Prime Minister's first visit to China in 7 years. Sources say India's objective would be to instill positivity in the relationship. We have also been told by sources that the India-China relationship and the upcoming meeting between Modi and Xi should not be seen through the prism of an India-US relationship. While India and US relations have taken a rough turn recently, India and China have been working on improving ties for the past few years, and more so after October 2024, when Prime Minister Modi met President Xi Jinping on the sidelines of the BRICS summit in Kazan, Russia. Both leaders had agreed to work towards a peaceful and stable India-China relationship, and they had also decided to not allow differences on the boundary issue to disturb peace and tranquility at the LAC. Since then, there have been multiple meetings at the level of foreign secretaries, NSAs, defense ministers and the external affairs minister. Sources say that the consensus reached between Modi and Xi is now being given shape to ahead of the SCO summit in Tianjin. India has restarted issuing visas for Chinese nationals after 5 years. Final timelines for resumption of direct air flights between India and China is expected soon. India and China had earlier agreed in principle to resume direct flights. Reports say China has eased curbs on urea shipments to India, and the Indian industry hopes China will ease supply of specialty fertilizers. China's restrictions on rare earth magnets have created a crisis for the Indian industry, and the automotive industry is hoping that a positive meeting between Modi and Xi will help ease high rare earth magnet exports to India. India has also been clearing Chinese JVs with Indian companies wherever a technology partner is needed for Indian manufacturing. Also, in a first since 2021, an Indian vessel with 496,000 barrels of ultra-low sulfur diesel has been shipped to China. PM Modi is expected to have a one-on-one meeting on the sidelines of the SCO summit. The meeting will definitely set a roadmap for ties for the next few years. So what next now? And will this meeting between PM and President Xi at SCO stabilize the relationship? Joining me now to discuss this further is Shaun Rein, founder, China Market Research Group. He's joining us from Texas this evening. Thank you very much, Shaun, for joining us. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi is visiting India next week, specifically on the 18th of August. He will be holding talks with the Indian National Security Advisor. I'm guessing this is to lay the groundwork for the SCO summit, where the Prime Minister is going, and he will have a meeting with Xi Jinping on the sidelines. What do you think will be the expectations of China from the meeting between the two leaders?
Well, it's great to be here. I think we're starting to see some green shoots or light at the end of the tunnel, a very dark tunnel over the last 5 years where China and India relations weren't great. So I think Wang Yi is visiting India to make sure that when Modi visits the SCIO summit in Tianjin, that everyone knows we're looking for some deals between China and India. It might be an easing of visas, it might be an easing of direct flights, it might be an easing of export bans on rare earths. Whatever it is, I think Wang Yi and the National Security Advisor for India have to sort of come up with an idea of what is going to be on the agenda so that both Modi and President Xi can announce some wins at the end of August, early September. Now, the last time I was on CNBC-18, I said to my fellow Indian friends, we got to be careful. The United States is going to look to contain India's growth, and India should move closer towards China's economic orbit. I got heavily criticized after our last interview on Indian Twitter. People said, no, we can't trust the Chinese. We have to get closer to the Americans. But look what's happened in the last month. Trump is now threatening 50% tariffs on India. I doubt it'll be that high. But it's clear that Trump does not view Modi and India as a real friend of the United States. I don't think he views any country as a friend right now. He's very almost narcissistic, maybe he is narcissistic, trying to extract the best deal for the US and most importantly for America. So what's key for India is that India needs to fix its geopolitics, get closer to China.
Right. You're saying that India should pursue closer ties with China. Shaun, at the same time, India and China have had a difficult and complicated relationship historically. Uh, you cannot call this a friendly relationship or even allies. We are neighbors who have been managing their relationship over the past few decades. We are closely interconnected through global value chains and supply chains of critical components. One issue which has been an irritant in ties from the Chinese side is the fact that India has put restrictions on Chinese investments, and all Chinese investments into Indian companies have to be cleared by the Indian government. This has been happening, but on a case-by-case basis. Do you think somewhere Xi Jinping, in this meeting with Prime Minister, may seek more access for Chinese companies, more ease of doing business for Chinese investors?
Yeah, so that's a great point. Chinese companies are hitting a wall, okay? You've got great ones like BYD or Xiaomi or Huawei in the tech space. But because of national security concerns, and I think frankly racism and bigotry, they're running into a lot of barriers to entry in the United States, a lot of barriers to entry in Europe. So for Chinese companies to grow, the best place for them is India. Because as you and I have talked about in the past, India should and will be a global superpower in the coming decades. So the best place for Chinese companies to expand, offset the geopolitical tensions with the Western world is to invest in India. But unfortunately, Modi hasn't made it easy for Chinese companies to invest. Obviously, TikTok has been banned. Other companies like Xiaomi have come under tax investigations. So Chinese companies right now are scared to invest in India, but they want to invest in India. What I hope Modi and Xi can come to is some sort of an agreement where China sends magnets, sends batteries, sends rare earths, and things that are needed by India, and gets rid of export controls and barriers. And then on the other hand, India welcomes investment from China. China needs it, and right now, India needs it, because you're not going to see Apple and other major companies from the United States investing and expanding operations in India anytime soon, because they're worried that Trump is going to attack them, the way that Trump has attacked AMD or NVIDIA for investing in China. Right now, they have to pay 15% of their revenues in China back to the United States. So a lot of companies are going to be hesitant to expand in India from the United States. Right now, both India, both China have to say, you know what, let's forget some of the tension over the last couple decades. It's stupid. They're fighting over some rocks. I don't really quite understand why there's so much tension between the two countries. Both countries would benefit from more trade because both countries are going to be contained or try to be contained by the United States over the coming decades.
Right. I would also like to ask you about the rare earth magnet issue. China has started easing curbs on rare earth magnet exports for US and Europe, but not for India. There is an expectation in the Indian industry. The government has not said so. We would like to keep the expectations from the meeting between Modi and Xi slightly low. But what do you think could be the trade-off between India and China for letting those rare earth magnets go to India?
So I think that magnets, rare earths from China to India are going to be eased. It might not happen, on September 1st, September 2nd. It might be over the next 3 to 6 months. But it's very clear that we're setting the stage with Wang Yi visiting, that there's going to be an easing of the rare earth and magnet export controls to India. Basically, China hasn't done it yet with India because they're looking to get some leverage and they're looking to get some deals coming out of India. The Chinese have had to do it with the United States because they were worried about having the 100 and whatever % tariffs into the United States. So this was their carrot. They said to Trump, they said to Scotty Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, and Howie Lutnick, that we'll continue to export rare earths, but you need to reduce tariffs. Right now, India doesn't have leverage over China, and that's why China has been waiting to ease the export controls to get a better deal for, again, like you and I just discussed, potential investment for companies like Xiaomi or Huawei into India and make billion-dollar investments.
Right. I would also like to ask you, what would be the larger expectation from China in terms of balancing this partnership? We have a boundary dispute which has not yet been resolved. We've reduced the concentration of troops in certain areas. We're not in an eyeball-to-eyeball confrontation, which we were in 2020 after the border clashes. but still the relations remain tense. What do you think will be the next steps in stabilizing the relationship? The reason why I ask this, because both leaders set the ball rolling in October last year when they met in Kazan in Russia during the BRICS summit, and there was a consensus to try and re-engage and put the relationship back on track.
Yeah, so they couldn't do it that much after last October, and that's because of the Trump factor. Nobody knew who was going to win the presidency in America, whether it was going to be Biden or Kamala Harris or Trump, and nobody knew how Trump was going to react towards both countries, right? You saw Modi made a beeline towards Washington, D.C., and basically had a love affair with Trump and saying, you know, we're great friends. But it's clear that India and America are not great friends under the Trump administration. So I think, you know, Modi needs to be a little bit more realistic. I've never understood his geopolitics. He doesn't get close to the countries that I think he should get close to. He creates enemies with countries that I don't think he should. I think Modi needs to say, you know what, let's be a lot more pragmatic. If we're going to continue to do oil trade with Russia, if we're still going to be concerned about Pakistan, and Pakistan is getting closer to the United States right now, that India really has no choice but to get closer to China. I would like to see some initial first steps. How ridiculous is it that the two most populous countries in the world that share a border, that are going to be the global superpowers in the future, don't have direct flights? Both countries are shooting themselves in the foot by not saying we need to have direct flights. Now, from the Chinese side, the Chinese feel that they've been asking for direct flights ever since COVID ended, and that the real barrier is Modi. So Modi, in my mind, has to be a little bit more pragmatic and, you know, say, let's be less strongman and let's make an olive branch to China by having those direct flights, ending the tax investigations, and let's stop all the stupid banning of Chinese companies like TikTok and other apps on national security grounds. Because right now, let's be clear, China will benefit from trade with India, but right now, Modi and India needs China more than China needs India.
All right. Thank you very much, Shaun Rein, for joining us on the program. Moving on, India has begun an outreach to mitigate trade challenges ahead of the imposition of additional 25% tariffs by the US. A special discussion on the other side.